Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode.
Hey there, welcome to episode 39. We are in a series called Thriving, Not Just Surviving, and hitting topics that you would face in everyday life, but kind of how it would affect your marriage. And we put up a poll on Instagram about a month, 6 weeks ago, and asked people kind of what topics we should talk about. 57% wanted to hear about sex after kids. So how do you thrive, not just survive, having sex after kids? And we feel like we can speak to this because we have 3 kids so far, 1 more on the way. Mm-hmm. And so we know what it's like to kind of enter back into having sex after a baby, and trying to maintain that with young kids around.
Yes, we do. Let me first just take a quick pause here and say happy birthday, because at the time this is posted, it'll be your birthday.
Thank you.
We're recording it a couple days ahead of that, but
how sweet of you to remember, though.
I want to be the first
early.
one to wish you a happy birthday.
Yeah, Monday.
So if I forget on Monday, you'll probably listen back to the podcast and you'll hear me say it. So now I'm covered in 2 ways.
Thank you.
No, happy birthday. And hopefully you guys all listening to this will reach out on social and tell my wife happy birthday as well.
That would be. Then now I feel like just because you said so, but that's okay.
That's okay. Now they
special.
Know. So yeah, we're gonna dive into how to make it work, how to thrive in your sexual relationship with your spouse after having kids. You know, like you said, we have 3 kids currently. We started off with twins. If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for being here. Julie and I had twins our first time around, and we also have a daughter who will turn 3 a couple days before this episode posts. So,
our birthdays are 2 days apart. So, yeah. So, our daughter's 3, our boys are 8, and just the other day, in fact, one of the boys randomly asked me, "Why was your door locked this morning, Mommy?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't really want to answer that."
I told him, just don't worry about it.
Yeah. And he was okay with that. But that's the stage of life that we're in.
Yeah.
And so
curiosity is starting to peak. We can't.
So we do lock the door. Yes. That's tip number 1 advice.
Specifically, that time was in the morning.
Right.
And so when we woke up, we locked the door. Thank goodness I thought of locking the door.
I know. And he was fine. He didn't need anything. I don't even know if I realized.
What we don't know is how long he may have been standing outside the door. So just be aware of that. If you're venturing off into morning sex with your spouse, that you may have a kid just waiting outside your door listening because they're awake now. We're going to talk about some of that stuff later, but I mean that's just a quick example of the obstacles that you have to try and work around, the new obstacles you have to try to work around when you have kids, and you're no longer just a married couple. You're now a married couple with young children, or I guess any age children.
Yeah. I mean, we're not there yet, but I'm sure this doesn't get any easier.
Yeah. So, when you have kids around, there are constant interruptions in your life. You can't have a conversation with your spouse without getting interrupted for something most of the time.
That's why we record when they're sleeping at night.
Right. And even then, I'm concerned that someone's going to come downstairs and open the door and interrupt. So we have to try and wait for that sweet spot. So
next time they asked why our door was locked, we say, we were just recording. Oh, yeah. Just kidding. But you were saying constant interruptions, and here I'm interrupting you.
There you go.
Conversations.
So there's constant interruptions in your conversations when you're trying to do a task. Someone says they have to go potty, and you have to stop everything you're doing. When you're trying to work, if you're working from home and your kids are at home, that's kind of a tough situation. Even if you're not working at home and your kids are at school, there can be interruptions. with your kids getting sick and having to be picked up, and your day is just completely interrupted. So, if it happens in all of those areas of your life, it's bound to happen in your sex life with your spouse as well. So, knowing that that does happen, what we urge you to do is just take advantage of being intimate anytime the interruptions are gone. And I'm not just nicknaming the kids the interruptions here, but anytime interruptions are going to be gone for a little while, if the kids are staying off at a friend's house, or they're having a play date with someone, or they're staying at the grandparents' house or something, make sure you take advantage of all of those little nooks and crannies of time that they're gone, so that you cannot have those interruptions, because you can have a lot more fun with your spouse when you can explore beyond your locked bedroom door, different areas of your house and things like that. And so that's something that you can just be mindful of, to say, okay, the kids are gone. We don't just have to be locked in our bedroom this time like we normally do.
Yeah, I think that's key, because I really believe a lot of couples use their kids as excuses to stop being intimate with their spouse. And yes, logistically, it is hard. It changes the time or frequency, because you have kids that need you or wouldn't be appropriate for them to be around. But don't let the kids or one child just make that like the go-to excuse, where I've had to personally analyze, when our sex life wasn't what it is today. I had to personally analyze, what are the other reasons that I could be giving excuses. And I think it's because when you have a baby, physically, no matter how that baby was delivered, you don't have sex right away after. You have to have a healing process, and your doctor tells you to wait normally 6 weeks at least. And I think, we were in that stage of life where you're having sex frequently to try to conceive a baby. Then pregnancy comes, and that could go one of two ways depending on the woman. Either it gets better and a higher drive comes during pregnancy, or you're exhausted and you're uncomfortable and you don't want sex. So frequency is either, like I said, higher or lower during the pregnancy. And then baby comes and you have to take this abstinence break. And then you're exhausted again with the child, or, they're in the way, quote unquote. And so it's just like this perfect excuse. But I think people honestly just get out of the habit. And so we want to talk to kind of maybe some ideas of leaning into that after that 6+ week break, how to be intimate again. Or even if you have a toddler or older child, but you realize, it's kind of like we're stuck in that after baby rut of if you can't remember the last time you've been intimate with your spouse, then maybe lean into this podcast episode with some ideas.
I think that there's a lot in everything that you just said. I mean, I want to be careful not to scare anybody who's about to have kids, who doesn't have any kids yet. But these are real truths that you have to be aware of. And if you're getting the opportunity to try and learn about some of this before you have kids, great. Take some notes, and that'll help you be a little prepared for some of the things you have to work around with kids, feeding schedules and tiredness, and all those things that you just described, the physical changes that your body is going through during the pregnancy, after the pregnancy. Those are just things that you can kind of take note of if you haven't had kids yet, if you're going to have kids soon. But I want to go back to something you said for a second about, you said you think a lot of people use kids as the excuse to stop being intimate with their spouse. And I just want to clarify, are you saying that you think a lot of people lose interest in their spouse and they use the kids as the excuse? I don't feel like that's what you're saying. I feel like that so much change comes in a pregnancy that it's easy to kind of put your spouse on the back burner and just kind of get into focusing on the kids. I'm not really
no.
asking this question very well, so hopefully you can decipher it and try and provide some clarity there.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean to misspeak if I was confusing. I'm just trying to say, like, the couples that we work with or hear from who are struggling to be intimate with their spouse, honestly, it's usually after children.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can call it the honeymoon phase or whatever. You can have sex more frequently when you don't, when you're not parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it's necessarily losing interest. I think that's a whole nother topic.
Sure. Yeah.
Of falling
I agree.
in
I was
or
just
out of love. Like that's
creating
a whole
conversation.
nother podcast episode or coaching session for sure. I was specifically saying, even just trying to use myself, because that was us, like the first year after having the twin babies, I could have been fine not having sex like ever again, and it wasn't anything to do with the think back to me, because you would come to me, think back with me,
Mm-hmm.
not to me, and you would come to me and say that, like, you would feel like I didn't desire you and things like that, and I was totally like, what are you talking about? Of course I love you. We were just in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's that. It wasn't, for me, I didn't lose interest in you. I just didn't think about your needs or any of that. And I would even say my own needs. And that's why I'm saying, I said most couples. I don't mean to put everybody in the same box, but I can relate to that, because I think because I had a C-section with the boys. So I had to wait that 6 weeks. And I think learning from that, then when we had our daughter, I did things differently, like during those 6 weeks, because I was so scared for you to even like touch me. And so it was just kind of like, no, nothing. And then getting back to that, I just, it just felt so different after. Learning now after another pregnancy, it's okay even if you can't have intercourse during that recovery. There's other ways to be intimate, and I think that's important, to keep the frequency of connecting with your spouse, of saying, we can't do this, but touch me, kiss me, hold me, and I'm all in to being intimate with you in different ways. And I think that helped us connect for the past 3 years now that she's about to be, instead of how it was when we first had kids.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And, I want to, you touched on something else that's outside of what we planned on talking about that I want to,
this is just an open conversation right now. It's very different, but
just so you guys know, I mean, if you're listening, every week when we create these episodes, we plan out a structure of the podcast, so we have an idea,
bullet points
of what we're going to say, but then every so often there are these that we get into conversation, and the conversation turns out good. There's more to talk about than what we had in our notes. So we like to be genuine. We don't like to edit our podcasts or cut anything out, because when stuff like this comes up, we want to make sure to follow that trail and see where it's going to lead to. So one of the things that you said was, after the twins were born, you weren't thinking about my needs or your own needs. And I think that's really important to touch on, because it can be so easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of taking care of one or more other human beings besides your spouse, so excluding your spouse from that, because
the little humans,
the kids, and you can get caught up in the whirlwind of doing that and just totally kind of forget about your needs and your spouse's needs. I mean, I can think back to when the twins were born, and we had you and I had an alternate, essentially, sleeping schedule, because each one of us was up in the night at different times feeding the boys when they were newborns. And because of that alternate sleeping schedule, that put us on alternate just like tired cycles at the end of the evening, and we weren't in bed as long as frequently. We went to bed at different times every single night
Yeah.
during a certain season. So it wasn't even like we made that connection in the bedroom, because when I would finally come to bed because I had the first shift, you were dead asleep, and I wasn't going to wake you up and interrupt that when I knew you needed to get the sleep to do the next shift. Not to mention I wanted to go to bed then too.
Right.
So there are seasons of that where things can happen, but it just means you have to get even more creative. You have to tune in, and you can just do simple things like set reminders on your phone to check in with your spouse and say, hey, how are you doing? I know, it's been a week since we've had sex. I haven't forgotten about you.
Acknowledging
It's
it,
just,
yeah.
because
It is what it is, but speak to that so that I haven't forgotten about you.
Right, because I legitimately remember there was a time where I counted and it had been over 30 days.
And
I
I was
came
not
to
counting.
you and I
Yeah.
said, do you realize it's been over 30
Yeah.
days? And you had not. And I don't fault you for that, because we were just caught up in the whirlwind. And, but you can do things, learn from some of our mistakes, and you can do things to proactively check in. Just let your spouse know, like, I haven't forgotten about you. I know we need to connect. And maybe that's where some scheduling comes in. If you're just having kids, your new schedule is crazy, you haven't figured it out yet, find a time, put it on the calendar, say, we're going to commit to having sex at this time. And if you're in the middle of it and a baby wakes up crying, they'll be okay for a few more minutes. Like, just know that turn off the monitor so you can't hear it as much, because I know you as a mom, when you would hear
Oh, my mind
a kid
was
cry,
there.
like, you
I
were
was
gone,
done
like,
with with you.
Yeah. And so you have to really make sure that you say, okay, here are our boundaries. We're gonna give ourselves this amount of time. Get it done. Sometimes it can be just a get it done, and you have to check it off the to-do list. But try to be engaged. Even if it does have to be kind of a to-do list item, block out the time. Be engaged with your spouse during that time. Devices away, turn the monitors down, light a candle, do something to get yourself focused on your spouse, because that focus time, even if it's short time to just try to get it done, that focus between your spouse is what's going to create that deep, intimate connection, even during those seasons of chaos.
Yeah, so we went from the dry season there to that was really really how we learned to talk about sex back then and figure it out together, because like I said, I was oblivious, and that wasn't a healthy marriage. And so we had to really talk about it and schedule it, like Thomas said.
And because you were oblivious, I'm sorry to interrupt, but because you were oblivious, it didn't make me feel good.
Right.
Like, it felt like I had been forgotten. And again, I don't blame you for that, but it was just the chaos that had happened. So I'm saying be proactive and check in with your spouse. So continue what you were saying. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, that's why we say prioritize your marriage over the kids. And we'll get smack for that. And I don't want that to be misunderstood as well.
Don't neglect your kids.
We take care of our
but
kids.
Don't neglect your marriage.
But they see a prioritized marriage model to them. And like the other day, we were going to the gym together. We were dropping the kids off at school and daycare, and we were all in the same car, so they knew we were in our workout clothes. And the boys knew it was, oh, you're going on a date. Like, it was just really cute that they acknowledged that that our time together is priority. And so I think through the dry season, after having kids, are communicating about it, scheduling it, me trying to work on getting myself there mentally again, and all of that.
And physically.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of changes.
Not from a body image perspective, but like sexual.
But that too.
Sexually, physically.
Yeah. Sex after kids, again, not to scare you if you don't have kids. It changes, but again, it was kind of mind over matter, and there were so many reasons why I would say no. Like, if it didn't feel good or I was too tired, I could laundry list of excuses. But at the end of the day, when I leaned into it, I always enjoyed it. Like at the end, because Thomas, first of all, like, be patient with your spouse, whichever one needs more time physically to get there, emotionally, whatever it is, I mean, intimacy is so much other connection than intercourse, but if you're patient with each other and allow them to be who they are and what they need to be in that moment, like you being patient with me helped me get there, and then I always enjoyed it, and that helped me like come back to it and push those things aside. And so much has changed now with our, even with young kids, of how we prioritize each other and our frequency of our intimacy. But those excuses can still, pop into my mind now, especially because I'm pregnant now, saying I'm too tired. Can I rain check?
Yeah. And that's really important. That's an important excuse to kind of hone in on, especially with having kids. Anyone who has children will be happy to tell you they haven't slept well in probably since the day their child was born. You haven't had a great night's sleep. Especially the more kids you have, there's, like I said, there's constant interruptions. That's another area you get interrupted in, is your sleep. Even older kids wake up and need you. And so I think that being too tired can occasionally be a legitimate excuse. And you may truly need to prioritize sleep over sex in a certain scenario. Now, I don't want to say that every time you're too tired, you should give in to that and just use that excuse. I think more often than not, you should probably push through and enjoy that time with your spouse. One, to fulfill that for yourself. Like you said, you weren't paying attention to your needs, but also to not make your spouse feel rejected, because that's just not a good excuse. I think, like I said, I do think there are valid times, but if you feel like that's one of those times where you actually have to use that excuse, I truly suggest that you give your spouse a rain check. Say, hey, can we please, like, try to do it as proactively as possible. I mean, they've probably been giving you hints throughout the day and things like that. So don't wait until like they're naked in the bed and then say, actually, no. But if you can tell them earlier in the evening or afternoon, like, hey, I'm really tired. I want to go to bed early tonight. I know I want to have sex with you, but can we rain check till like tomorrow? As soon as the kids go to bed, like, I'm ready for you. Like,
we've tried to be specific with that, for that to work. So you're right. One, I talking about myself. One, I have to choose to lean into it and not give up every time I'm tired, or that would be every time. Because then sometimes it does relax me better and I sleep better. So there's that. And then, yes, we've learned to not just say rain check and then that's it. It's like, that's kind of how our morning sex came in. Like, if I'm like, I'm falling asleep, but can we set an alarm and get up early? I'm giving away some of our tips that we were going to save for the end, but we're more specific with that, right?
Yeah, you can give your spouse a rain check and a time that they can be confident that if they approach you during that time, they won't be rejected. And you have to then cash the ticket. When they come for that rain check, you got to cash their ticket and you got to be there for them. Because that's going to build that trust between the two of you to say, okay, you lived up to your end of the bargain and you said, hey, rain check. I said, okay. And you said this time. I came back and you said, yes, we're good. So I think that's really important. But again, I would encourage you to not use the tired excuse very often. Push through whenever you can. Just remember, you don't have to, just because you're going to have sex with your spouse doesn't mean that you have to be doing like circus tricks in bed when you're tired.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a crazy night. It can be super simple and be just as fun and intimate. So, that can be your compromise, if you will. Like, hey, I'm all in for tonight, but like, you be in control, you take the lead. Or
I think parents learn how to have a quickie.
You have to.
So.
If you don't know the art of the quickie yet and you're not a parent, learn it.
Yeah.
Practice beforehand.
Oh. We're getting kind of close to our time that we have a goal, so people don't turn us off and stop listening. But we did want to rapid fire some tips of how to thrive, not just survive, when having sex after kids. in your marriage. And so we've alluded to some of them. I said set an alarm for early morning times. I'm not a morning person, but that has been super fun when I can't keep my eyes open at night and I need to do that rain check. And then when our alarm can go off before the kids up and we lock the door and do a quickie, it is kind of a fun thing we started doing as parents.
Yeah, we know our kids start to wake up at a certain time, whether they have an alarm set for school or their body clock wakes them up on the weekends. Like, we know kind of
our window,
what our window is, and how much earlier we have to get up to avoid a kid standing outside of our door. So, sometimes we get it right. Sometimes our timing's a little off, and, that is what it is.
What's another one?
Another one is shower together.
Yeah, that the kids know you're taking a shower. They probably won't
and
think
if you
anything.
lock the bathroom door for that, they're probably not going to think anything of that. So, and you can turn on the vent fans and things like that to create some, white noise to help cover up some of the sound. It can be any
time of the day. Choose when vacationing. We've learned this one. Choose an Airbnb over a hotel. Nowadays, there's a cleaning fee associated with the Airbnb, but mostly their night rates are comparable. But that cleaning fee is worth it to us to have separate bedrooms from the kids. Everyone sleeps better with that, and we can cook inside and save money there. So if you're worried about that, but that has actually benefited our sex life is by choosing an Airbnb over a hotel on vacation or
on
traveling.
Family vacations. Yeah,
when the kids are with us.
Yeah, when the kids aren't with you, you can go either way. Whatever is more comfortable to you, but
budget friendly for you. But
yeah, another one is babysitting swaps. So find a family member who also has kids, or a friend, or something like that you can say, hey, you've got a couple of kids and we have a couple of kids, and getting a babysitter to go out on a date is expensive, so can we have you babysit for us one night? We'll go out on a date and our kids will sleep at your house,
or if you're not comfortable with sleepovers, it's just kind of like because they're adults, so they don't have them over at our house like you would have maybe a teenager and go out to dinner. So you can drop your kids off at a friend or family's house just for the, dinner time. You can go back to your own home that's then now an empty home and go pick up your kids before bedtime. So that's where, some people aren't comfortable with sleepovers nowadays, but there's still ways to do kid swaps with trusted friends and family.
Yeah, and you can let the kids fall asleep there and pick them up later, and stretch your date out an extra hour, and just one of you can go pick the kids up. You both don't have to go back. You can get dinner, take it home, eat dinner at home, and then have sex, and you don't have to then spend all that time at the restaurant. Like, you can get creative with your date nights in situations like that so that you can utilize those babysitting swaps. But kind of like the rain checks, you have to cash in for the other couple too.
Right.
You have to then
offer to watch theirs.
To watch their kids sometimes, so that they have the opportunity as well.
Yeah, and I think just think outside the box would be my tip of that scheduling kind of can help. It doesn't have to be limited to the bedroom or just morning or evening. So depending on your work situation, if you're working from home and the kids are in school or daycare or whatever, or you have the opportunity to come home for lunch, those quickies, get, like Thomas said earlier in that episode, wherever there's no interruptions, take advantage of that. So I think our mind has to shift. It doesn't have to be the, romantic bedroom evening rendezvous. But just try to get it in when you can and make it fun.
Yeah, and last one here. We all have stress in our lives. Kids create their own amount of stress for the parents, and but you can have other areas of your life impacting you. It could be something new at work going on, or a big event or something like that. If you're feeling extra stressed, talk to your spouse about that and let them know. Don't take it out on them. Talk to them. That's important to keep in mind. They should not be the ones being your punching bag. but they should be able to come right alongside you and help you through it. So if you don't let them in, they can't help you. But all that being said, sex can be a great stress reliever. It gets you to deeply, intimately connect with your spouse. And then in that moment, you should be able to forget about a lot of the things that are going on in your life. And I think that that's a great opportunity to channel that stress into that emotional and physical connection with your spouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Like together.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a fun one for us.
Yeah, it was fun.
I'm getting stumbled up on my words here. And so
we don't edit.
we're not going to edit it. So
where are you going?
I don't have time to edit it. I have 3 kids that, I'm going to have to take care of in the morning. So you can find us on social media. We hope that you will go do that. And like I said, go and wish Julie a happy birthday when you're listening to this on Monday. So
that's at Marriage Puzzle.
At Marriage Puzzle. Go find her there at Marriage Puzzle on Facebook or Instagram. And you can check us out, follow us, and engage with our content. That helps us to reach more people. And that's our goal here is, we do this to try and just put some free information out there to help people. And the more you engage, the more those platforms show it to other people so that they can get help too. So
to thrive.
So check us out there. Go check out our website, marriagepuzzle.com, and schedule a discovery call with us. If you would like some individualized help with your marriage from us to you as a couple.
Especially in this topic. I mean, we talk about we have 8 sessions on our coaching, but sex is one of them, and parenting is one of them if that's your stage of life. So I wish more people would ask for help and talk about this topic in their marriage.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for being here. And as always, we look forward to you joining us next week, where together we'll work on marriage one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
Thanks for listening.